is Danny Flexen here for SecondsOut. Delighted to welcome Ghanaian super-middleweight Sena Agbeko to the channel. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Danny. Thanks for having me, and thanks for giving me this avenue to to meet more boxing fans.
That's not a problem. I think this is the first time we've had you on the channel. So I think the first question really is, how does a good amateur from a boxing hotbed in Ghana end up in the United States plying their trade as a professional?
Well, I mean, we all know that to be successful, and it's hard to be successful just staying where I'm from, Ghana. And I knew it right when I started boxing that eventually I would either have to move, to Europe or somewhere in America to give myself a shot at winning a championship. All the champions before me had to do that. Azuma Nelson, Iquote, Joshua Clote, Joseph Agbeko, DK Poison, all of them from Ghana. So I knew that it was inevitable that that I would have to pursue that path, considering that I was winning all my fights in Ghana at the time. I just didn't think it would take this long to get a shot at the championship or to be where I'm at right now. So, but it's always better late than never. So I'm just happy that I'm where I am right now.
So how did it actually happen? Was your talent spotted by someone back home, or did you reach out to people in the US?
Actually, I had a friend back home who actually he was actually the son of the owner of the gym where I trained. So he was very close friends with somebody here in the US who actively does that for Ghanaian fighters. He helps them come over and helps push them. So it was perfect. I was in Ghana. I was doing pretty well, and he was the son of the owner, and he wanted to give me a shot. So he connected me to this other Ghanaian who lives in Maryland, and we started the process. Actually, started the process while I was still in college in Ghana. So right when I finished, it wasn't even a month, and I was on my way to the U.S. to pursue my goals of becoming champion.
And how did you find the kind of early stages of that professional career? Because you were often on either the right-hand side of the card or, going up against people that maybe were brought in to win the fights. You didn't have everything handed to you, I think it's fair to say. How did you find that experience?
I mean, the Ghana part was like, I mean, I always trained extremely hard, and I never really trained based off who I was facing. It was just one goal in mind, to win the championship. So the approach to every fight was the same. And some fights, like most boxers would tell you, some fights are easier than others, and some more difficult. So it was pretty much just routine experience for me. Obviously, my first fight in the U.S. was my most challenging fight because it was also my first loss. I attributed to a lot more than just my skill. It was definitely more anxiety being on the biggest stage. And I mean, I talked to the opponent years later, and he said I hit him harder than he'd ever been hit, and he definitely felt like it was definitely the stage. And I had to take my time, retrain my mind to deal with that level of stress, that level of anxiety. And that's something that I feel like a lot of trainers don't prepare their fighters enough for. They prepare them physically, and in some cases mentally, but then it's a type of pressure that they don't really prepare them for, and you kind of are introduced to it while you're in there. And it's not everybody that's built to deal with it. That doesn't determine your caliber, because I believe that we're all capable of being programmed to do whatever we need to do. And I feel like it's a very important part of training that coaches need to start, helping their wards understand better. So, yeah.
Now, I believe you traveled widely across the United States for different training methods and different sparring. Tell us some of the names you've sparred and perhaps who you've learned the most against.
The first sparring that I really learned something from that was really good was Badu Jack. That sparring session, he taught me to be patient. It was where I really learned the pro game. It's like it's patience, and whenever you try your best not to make mistakes, obviously, and you have to train to do that. And you look for those spots, and as soon as those mistakes are made, you get punished for it. So it's like it was just an eye opener, that experience for me, and I was like, okay, so this is what it's like really to be at a very, very top level. There's a lot of patience, not being slow, but just being really patient and just looking for your moment while setting traps and whatnot. So I learned a lot from that experience. Obviously, my spar Peter Quillen too. He was also a great champion that I got a chance to learn from. Um, my most recent being Beterbiev, after
Wow.
Beterbiev, light heavyweight, all knockouts. He's a power puncher. He's an absolute animal, and I had the honor and pleasure of helping him get ready for alongside others. I helped him get ready for and Anthony
Yeah.
Yard. So yeah, so that was also a hell of a great experience for me. But outside of that, I've sparred so many people. Like some don't really come to mind right now, but I've sparred so many people, and some of them for years across gyms in New York, in Miami, in California, various cities in California. You name it, Houston, just all across the U.S. The only place I haven't really been is the Northwest. That's pretty much the only place that I haven't been in the U.S. to really like. That's also because there really aren't that many boxers who play their trade in the Northwest. So I'm very well traveled. I've seen various coaches train their athletes, and even when I'm not being instructed directly, I kind of pay attention and try to learn what I can. So I've truly really been a student of the sport and traveled all over to try to learn what I can.
You talked earlier about the mental aspect of the sport and how you can be programmed to deal with certain challenges. You went on a winning run after your first defeat that you talked about earlier, and that culminated in a victory, a dominant victory on paper, and certainly in the ring as well against Roy King. The aftermath of which wasn't what you would have intended. Just talk to us a little bit, if you don't mind. I know it's a sensitive subject, but about how you dealt with that situation.
Yeah, for me, it was hard for me to deal with initially because right after the fight, even, I mean, the man passed a year after the incident,
Mm.
but I was so emotional, I cried in the ring, but I kind of drew a little solace in the fact that I didn't feel entirely responsible for it because of the actions that he may have carried out that I felt like, put him in that position himself. And I had a chance to meet his mom, his wife, and his sister, three of the most important women in his life. And his mom actually kissed me on the cheek, the rest, his his mother kissed me on the cheek, and his wife and sister, they were very nice. They were very nice to me. So it kind of also, took a lot of the weight off my shoulders, and it took me a while to really like wrap my head around it because it's very unnerving when you think that that could have been you, like because I'm thinking of okay, I go in there with my family, and I never walk out again, and the thought of that is just devastating, and I don't want that to ever happen to anybody. So it took me a long time. Initially, I thought I could just readily deal with it, but I had to do a bit of therapy. I did do a bit of therapy to help me deal with it, and then of course I led right into my fight with Vladimir Shishkin, which is also on my record. That's something that we might talk about down the line. But yeah, that was how I dealt with it. It took me a really long time, but I believe that I'm over it, and I definitely wish his family the best, and I still intend, when the time is right, to visit his hometown. And he has a gym there that he has a gym that's still operational. So I want to be able to support what I can of what he helped create when I can.
And you mentioned the Shishkin fight there. It seems like it was only days after Roy King actually passed away. As you mentioned, it was over a year after the contest that he sadly passed. But it was just days before your first fight since then against Shishkin. Did that weigh on your mind at all going into that fight?
I mean, at the time, I felt like it didn't really bother me, but I feel like it may have weighed on my mind. Although the performance, I don't think the performance was affected in any way or form by it. This I don't want to go back to the past because I've made my peace with that fight. But at the same time, too, there's a reason why all of Vladimir Shishkin's fights are available on YouTube to be viewed, but my fight with him is nowhere to be found on the planet Earth. You understand? So that in itself tells you what really happened that night. Two other judges gave him every single round. When, you know, even on the Showtime telecast, round by round, he didn't have highlights. I mean, I cut him well over the eye, almost to the bone. And in any of the, if he was the opponent, trust me, the fight would have been stopped. But they let it carry on, you know. And at the elite level, you can't expect to always win by stoppages. Everybody trains to the best of their ability. So sometimes these contests are close, and they go to the cards. It doesn't mean that, you know, just because I wasn't able to knock him out doesn't mean I wasn't that dominant. And you know, it was given to him. It is what it is. So I've since moved on from that. Obviously, I didn't let it deter me. I've kept training, kept my path, kept working hard because I know what I'm capable of. And I believe even if you talk to Shishkin today, he'll have a lot of good things to say about me. As I have, I think he's a hell of an athlete. He's a really good fighter who has, you know, every fighter with an undefeated record definitely has like unlimited potential in terms of like earning capacity and what they could become as a star. So, you know, my hats up to him. But yeah, that fight I believe was judged unfairly. But I've moved on apparently from all that, and you know, I've created my own path that I'm still on.
And you obviously haven't suffered defeat since. You've beaten some good fighters along the way, and you've linked up also with Selita Promotions. Just tell us how that came about.
Well, Salida, we haven't really worked in an official capacity, but mind you, Vladimir Shishkin is inked to Salida Promotions. So after fighting him, I was seeking a lot of opportunities, and I kept reaching out to, you know, Dimitri Salida to try to give me, you know, shots and whatnot. And initially, there wasn't much, you know, that I got back, but my it was just my desire to keep going. I sought out a new manager who redirected, you know, my career, and that culminated in like two really good wins. You know, the first being against John Thompson, and then the second being against Winfred Harris, which I won, where I won the WBC USA super middleweight belt. So short thereafter, there was an event that Salida was putting on in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and it just so happens, you know, the main event, the opponent fell out, and you know, I was up for consideration. So luckily, you know, I had maintained good contact, good relationship with them, and you know, I took the fight on a 2-week notice, and I went in there and did what I was supposed to do, and I believe that is what initially earned me the shot at Morell for the fight that we were supposed to have in April. And then, of course, everything else happened that kind of blew it out the water. But yeah, well, I guess we'll get to that when we get to that. I'll talk more in depth about that situation.
Well, yeah, as you pointed out, that you were supposed to fight David Morrell, the WBA regular super middleweight champion, earlier this year. And you can talk to us a little bit about why that didn't happen then. But the rumor is that it's the fight has been resurrected. What can you tell us?
Well, yes. So the fight is very much in play now for December 16th, and you know, everything works out the way it's supposed to work out. The first fight, I don't know what happened. It could have been an error on the part of the radiologist, but I also blame the Nevada State Athletic Commission for not following due process, because they asked me for a second opinion, a qualified second opinion, which I sought from a neurosurgeon who has over 3 decades of experience. Who was like, "Hey, I don't know what this guy said he saw, but I don't see anything wrong with his brain scan. There's no aneurysm whatsoever. And even if he had an aneurysm the size that the radiologist said, those types of aneurysms are not known to rupture from trauma. Yeah, so there's no chance of anything happening to him in the course of the fight." And the commission chose to overlook this. And of course, they were quick with replacing me. I felt like, you know, again, it's a feeling. I can't, you know, I can't say for a fact that that was what happened, but I feel like, you know, they were more than happy to replace me. But I am more than anything, I am just happy that, although I'm just happy that I have the opportunity again. Although I do feel that their hands have been forced because of my onslaught on social media, in addition to the fact that Morell has presented himself as this mythical creature that everybody should be scared of.
Avoided
So
fighting.
nobody wants to fight him. And I'm the only guy out there who's willing to take on this challenge. So they're like, okay, fine. If he wants to take on the challenge, and to be fair, like Morell, I don't think he's done anything to deserve a shot at the likes of Benavidez or the Canelos that he's calling out. He's still 9-0. He can take his time and build his record. And he needs to get tested. So I mean, this is right. This is only right. He's been highly touted. There's been a lot of talk about him. I'm just glad that they came back around because ultimately, the way boxing works, I know that they could have gone with anybody else. They could have gone with anybody else, and they really could have created a narrative to suit that.
Sure.
And yet, they came back around and decided to work with me. So I'm grateful to God for that experience, for that opportunity. Come December 16th, as now I have signed my portion of the contract, and I believe it's on because it was officially announced earlier by Boxing Scene. So as of now, there's nothing left to do but to fight come December 16th.
What do you make of Morell as a fighter, and where do you feel you hold the advantages that will be key on December the 16th?
I feel where I have the advantages is what is unknown about me, and that's a lot of them look at me and they look at my knockout ratio, they look at my physique, and then the assumption is that it's a lot of power, and they're right. Yes, I do have that pop, I do have that power, but there's also a lot that they don't know about me, which obviously I'm not going to reveal here. They're just going to have to find out in the ring come December 16th. Morell, I'm not the type to berate fighters, make them seem less than they are. No, he's an excellent fighter. I mean, of course, no one would even believe me if I said. People would think I was crazy if I said, "Oh, he's no good fighter. He's an easy fighter." He obviously packs a punch. He's very skillful. I think he's also a little unorthodox, and that's what really a lot of fighters struggle with because his punches come from very different angles. Far different from your traditional southpaw. So that's one of his biggest strengths, just the peculiarity of his approach, to his punches, how he puts the combinations together. I definitely feel like he hasn't been tested. And of course he's on a high right now. So and he's entitled to that. He's done everything. He's gotten rid of every opponent in front of him so far. So he's absolutely entitled to that. Come December 16th, we'll just pit our strengths against each other and see who comes out on top.
As you said earlier, you don't feel he deserves just yet the fights with the likes of Canelo and Benavidez. If you're to defeat him on the 16th of December, do you then deserve those fights for beating Morell?
Absolutely. I feel like more than anything, I've been in the game for a very long time. This will be my 10th. This is my 10th year in America. And at this point, and this will be my 31st fight. So, I mean, what am I waiting on at this point? Why wouldn't I be given the shot at a bigger name? Why wouldn't I be given a shot at one of the the much bigger names? How many more fights do I have to have? So, and of course, he's a younger fighter. He has fewer fights, and he needs to take his time and build himself into whatever he wants to be. But of course, my plan is to derail that and show that okay, I am this formidable force who also needs his shot. I've been working hard at this for the last 10 years of being in America. So I think that I absolutely deserve a shot at Canelo or whoever it is, that will give me who will give me a substantive belt at the division once I get past Morell.
December the 16th, that show isn't just historic for the fact that you could win that regular world title. It's also going to be the last show, unfortunately, for Showtime in the boxing world. What does that mean to you to be a part of something like that?
I mean, the first time I heard that was the nature of the show. That was going to be the last Showtime telecast. For me, I was in awe. I was like, wow, like in all the years that I boxed and trained, I never imagined that I would be headlining, the very last boxing show, Showtime. So I definitely, of course, it's one that's going to be memorable, going to be, etched in the history books. And I feel like every time that show is talked about, every time the contribution of Showtime to boxing is talked about, that last show will be brought to there. So it's absolutely important that I create a positive image of myself in this fight. And the way to do that is to make sure that I win this fight and win this belt and leave my mark etched forever as, the last guy to win a championship in Showtime boxing. So it's a big deal for me. I try not to think about it as much because it's all part of just not mentally burdening yourself and just focusing on the task at hand. So for me, yes, it's in the back of my mind, but it's not really there. My goal is to go in there, take it round by round, and get the job done.
And just tell us a little bit about your life outside of the ring and outside of the gym. Do you have your own family now in the US, and what do you get up
Yes,
to when you're not training?
I am married with no kids. My it's very hard. I hardly have a life outside of boxing. It's my wife too. She loves the sport of boxing. She's dedicated to it. She supports everything that I do, and she's part of the reason why I've really stayed true because she's been very, very supportive the whole way. I've had a tremendous amount of support around me, my friends. And it's true what they say that when you truly want something, the universe aligns to bring all the right people around you. And it just so happens that my friends, my coaches, all these are people who are all into boxing. So they help me keep the focus, and drive where it's supposed to be headed, and that's boxing. So maybe after I win a championship, or I feel accomplished in the sport, I can explore some of my other interests. I have a lot of interest in writing, also journalism. I have a bachelor's in communications. I do have a novel out, The Masters of Voodoo, and then I actually have a children's book that is yet to be published. It's all ready and everything, fully illustrated and everything. So that's also those are all things that I need to explore. And I have I have interest in eventually going into management as well, event planning and whatnot. So those are all interests of mine. But until I accomplish my sole objective of winning the world championship and being recognized as one of the greatest fighters to come out of Africa, all those are going to be on the back burner. Yeah.
That's a huge objective. One of the best fighters to come
Absolutely.
out of Africa. It's a storied history, isn't it?
I know, right? It's a little late to be starting it, but it's better late than never. So, I'm just grateful for the opportunity again. And fighting Morell in Minneapolis, I understand that I'm gonna have to knock him out to win because I don't think that unless it's a total domination, total masterclass for 12 rounds, I doubt that the judges will give it to me. So my goal, my objective for that night, which I'm training for very, very much so, is to knock him out and that's it. Knock them out. These are gonna be. This is gonna be my referee. This is gonna be my judge right here. So, so that is the plan. Come December 16th, and I'm not playing about it. So.
Good stuff. Now, just before I let you go, just tell the viewers out there how they can find you on the different social media platforms. Get to know a bit more about you before the big night.
Yes, absolutely. So, of course, my just so long as you have the correct spelling of my name, Sena Agbeko. It's Sena Agbeko together on Twitter. You can search for the same on Facebook, Sena Agbeko. On Instagram, it's Assassination. So ASSI_nation. So ASSI_nation. So that's because I'm the African assassin, the assassin. I consider, my whole group of supporters and my team the Assassination. So hence the handle Assassination. So they can definitely find me on there. And I post a lot of, fun training videos and just, my hopes and aspirations on there if they're interested and want to follow.
Excellent. Well, really, really appreciate your time. Very best of luck.
Thank you,
the
Danny.
16th of December. And let's do this again, hopefully with a belt over your shoulder.
Absolutely. That's the plan.
Great stuff.
Yes.
Take care.
All
You
right.
enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks so much, Danny. Appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Take care.
Thank you so much.